check. Let me bring to her seat on the podium from NNPC ENP. I'd like to welcome Executive Director Gas Development, Ms. Ekundayo Akimoyo. You are welcome to your seat on the panel. Joining her on the panel, we'd like to welcome from NGIC, Executive Director Asset Management, Engineer Badamosi. You are welcome to your seats on the panel. Let me now welcome on the panel Honorable Commissioner for Environment and Mineral Resources of Akwa Ibom State. Welcome the Honorable Nsikak Okon Ekong. You're welcome, sir. Joining us on the panel is Deputy Director Gas Production and Utilization at the Commission. Welcome. Engineer Jennis Anyanwu, you are welcome. Help us drive the conversation is the Director Office of the Authority Chief Executive of the Authority. Please welcome Mr. Steve Ayuba.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for staying into this part of this very important forum. It's been highly engaging so far. The stage has been set for highly exciting and amazing times in the South-South region. Permit me this afternoon to recognize EVP, Gas and Power, who is in the room. We have Akwa Ibom State, we have Bayelsa, we have Rivers State, we have Cross River, and then of course all the other major players from this very important sector that we have. So clearly, from all the presentations that we have heard, starting from MDGSCN, going into the goodwill speeches that we had, which clearly were already setting what the strategic tone that the development of gas in the South-South region must then toll. I think one of the major takeaway point that everyone that attended this conference will then leave with is that the South-South region is really ready for what gas resource can do to the socio-economic development of any region. Now, clearly we know that globally, gas, natural gas more specifically, has then generally been accepted as the transition fuel that must then continuously be used to ensure that energy access is made available for all the socio-economic activities that all the nations of the world are always desirous of. Now, if gas is going to be used responsibly to drive the very important aspect of all our lives, then that gas must be reliable. The supply of that gas must be reliable, but the supply of that gas must be done responsibly in such a way that gas is produced with very low carbon intensity, so sustainability, and then all the activities around gas development must then be done sustainably. Now, if we're going to do all of that, then strategy is very important. And seated on this panel this afternoon, personalities that clearly have every insight that is required to ensure that the critical strategies that must be agile, because our industry is very volatile, the markets are very dynamic, the forces that our industry are faced with every day are just very uncertain. The geopolitical headwinds that this industry face requires that strategy must be topped on how our business is done. Technology and innovation development are then just changing the pace of how things are done, particularly in our own industry. So I will start with the regulator of the upstream sector. Clearly, we know that Nigeria is abundantly endowed with gas. As a matter of fact, in Africa, so we have the highest proven producible reserve of gas in Africa. And then in the world, we also occupy a very enviable position in gas resource. But in Nigeria, that gas needs to then be made accessible. And that gas needs to be affordable so that Nigeria, and more particularly the South-South, so we're here because of the South-South, so that Nigeria and the South-South region can actually translate resource that we have into great value creation. Can you review with us, as a leading regulator in this sector, the major successful policy measures that are being implemented to ensure that the huge gas resource that we have can be readily made available for all the beautiful things that we have heard today, which gas can drive?
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. And I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to the EVP. I also bring to you the goodwill of the Commission Chief Executive. Now, putting your question in context, Nigeria today holds proven gas reserves of about 210.54 TCF. And if you consider the contingent resources, we have an upwards of about 600 TCF of gas. Now, it's important to note that these reserves are even discovered not by intentional exploration. These are gas reserves discovered accidentally in the course of exploration for oil. So you can imagine if there is an intentional search for gas, the kind of reserves that we'll be quoting today. So it is safe to say that Nigeria is indeed a gas province, with little deposits of oil. And like you rightly mentioned, in Africa, it ranks number 1. In the world, it ranks like number 8 in terms of proven reserves. But when you now look at production, in spite of the high rank in reserves holding, in Africa, Nigeria ranks 3rd, following behind countries like Algeria and Egypt. And then if you look at it globally, some reports or references put Nigeria at between 12 and 19 in terms of production, right? So we have high ranking in terms of reserve holding, but when it comes to production, we are not doing quite well. In terms of LNG exports, Nigeria also trailed behind Algeria. We do 22 million tons per annum installed capacity of LNG, but we're also trailing behind Algeria. So it shows that the issue here is not that of availability. There is abundant gas reserves, but the issue is that of accessibility. So the focus is shifting from availability to accessibility, right? And I do believe that we have tremendous policies and legal framework that can actually put Nigeria, or that is even making waves, towards putting Nigeria, and particularly the South region, right, into not just a region that holds gas reserves, but a region that has access to affordable gas. When Ed was speaking, he said that South-South holds about 90% presently of that reserves. Okay, so what do we have in place in forms of policy or regulatory framework that is enabling not just availability, but accessibility and affordability? The PIA, a landmark legislation, if you like, although may be imperfect, but has provided for what we call the domestic gas delivery obligation. Now, the domestic gas delivery obligation is a framework that empowers the upstream regulator, the commission, to mandate gas producers to allocate and deliver specific volumes of gas from their reserves and production to the strategic sectors of the market at a regulated price. Now, so we're talking about mandatory volume at a regulated price. That sounds like accessibility and at the same time affordability, because we are ensuring that gas that is sent to the domestic market are low-cost gas, such that there will be minimal competition between the export, which is usually high, cost-oriented, and highly priced, compared to that of domestic market. So the domestic gas delivery obligation is one such regulatory framework that is enabling gas accessibility and affordability within the strategic sector of the domestic market for power and the industry. But just one more very quickly. It's also a feature of the PIA that we term the drill or drop. Now, the drill or drop is a provision that allows government or the commission to look at gas assets, or rather any asset, but particularly gas assets, since that's what we're discussing, that has been lying fallow, years after, decades after, or years after discovery. And then the government or the commission has the powers to cause the companies or the asset holders to relinquish those into the basket for, exposure for other third parties to come bid for them and then monetize them. Recently, or some 2 years ago in 2023, very late, we conducted an assessment of what we call uncommitted gas assets. And we found out that there is about 57 trillion cubic feet of gas that is uncommitted and unmonetized.
Awesome.
Okay, so with such policies and regulatory framework, you see that if that or those assets that have been uncommitted is now brought into the basket, and bidders or third parties who are gas focused bid for them, that would also add additional gas into the market and make it more accessible and affordable. So we have, in my belief and my view, a number of initiatives within the PIA framework that is enabling accessibility of gas and affordability within the Nigerian domestic strategic sectors.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Jennis. So clearly, I think the message is well presented. So the regulator of the upstream sector, it's then clearly committed to ensuring that the huge gas reserves that we have can then be translated into volumes that are accessible through the use of the policies that are submitted, that are supported by the PIA. And it's then not just accessible volumes, but then volumes that will be accessible at affordable prices. Now, once gas is discovered and once gas is produced, it means that the supplier is ready to then translate gas molecules into demand points. But one of the critical enabler that is then required for that to happen successfully is the availability of infrastructure. Now, in the Nigerian gas space in Nigeria, we know that taking regions by regions, once you take the markets, and then structure the markets into the various regions that we have. The southwest region in Nigeria has been adequately connected to gas supply because the licensed gas transporter in Nigeria has then put in place an infrastructure, the Escravos-Lagos gas pipeline system in place, which has opened up a lot of the gas utilization opportunities that we have in that region, and we're seeing what is happening. But interestingly again, and strategically, the northern region of Nigeria is then being accelerated to be connected onto gas supply. So the AKK project is being driven strategically to ensure that the northern region is adequately covered. But today we're here because the south-south region is ready for gas. And if gas is then going to become a resource that will be used to enable the economic development of this region, then available infrastructure must be made available. Engineer Badomasi, NGIC has done exceptionally well in ensuring that some of the strategic regions of this nation that are using gas are doing well. What are the strategic gas infrastructural development initiatives that NGIC is currently implementing to ensure that the huge demand that we see in the South-South region, that infrastructure will be readily made available for that demand to be supplied?
Thank you so much, Engineer Ayuba. Standing on all existing protocols, to start with, NGIC, our main role is actually to transport gas. Gas is being produced from the reservoir, and we take it to the burner, as it were. So, our role as NGIC over time, in terms of gas transportation, is to ensure that we kickstart economy wherever our gas pipeline goes. You've spoken about EPS, Escravos to Lagos pipeline system. That pipeline was targeted solely on power generation. But as it stands today, we have a corridor that is busy with economic activities. Beyond power, we have fertilizer companies, methanol companies that are coming up, and different gas-based industry are springing up along that corridor. We want to speak around the AKK. AKK is yet to be commissioned. Right now, the number of activities that are ongoing there, different investors are taking opportunities, they are taking positions, so that when the gas flows, they can harness the opportunity there. So coming to the Niger Delta area, during the gas master plan presentation, it was clear that there is a plan, and it's one of those strategic plans of NGIC as a company. The QUOOP project, that's a Kwa Ibo Obibo Obi gas pipeline, is going to be a gas superhighway. It's going to be a 36-inch line. It will start from Oso platform to Kwa Ibo terminal. It's going to take it through Ukandafun to Obibo to Obi. From there, it entered the Trans-Nigerian line. So, as it happened in the southwest, and as it's happening now, even in the northern space where we have AKK corridor, definitely investors that are interested in gas base, in power generation, will definitely come into that space, as it were. So, what we are doing also around the Niger Delta, from QIT, we have a QIT to Umuahia, to Jakuta pipeline. So these are infrastructure development that we are we've planned. And as my Ibrahim has said, we have so many FID to be taken this year with regards to Nigerian gas development. So doing this, definitely the investment will blossom along this corridor. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Engineer Badamasi. So the South-South region, you can then clearly understand that all hands are on deck to not only ensure that gas is accessible and affordable, but that the infrastructural capacity that is required, like we've heard from many presenters from this morning's session, that those infrastructural capacity will then be made available to then bring gas to the South-South and then ensure that the South-South is able to optimally benefit as your strategic outlook is already. Okay, I'll go back to the upstream again because upstream is very critical. So the interesting thing about this market that we're all really talking about is that the critical enablers are very clear. So we had the decade of gas run us through into significant figures what the contributions of some of those critical enablers are. Supply is very key. Now from the presentation of Decade of Gas, and thank you Decade of Gas, so much work has been done to then bring the industrial focus around how our gas sector must be structurally developed within this decade to take us to where is required. We can see that within this decade, the supply of gas will be expected to grow significantly from what we had from NUPRC, which is of 8 billion standard cubic feet per day, to over 10 billion standard cubic feet of gas per day. We're seeing that demand, and we also saw that from the presentation of Decade of Gas, that demand generally in this sector is on a positive trajectory. Again, our president, it's then very strategic because this session is all about strategy. Our president desires that gas must then be fully integrated into how Nigerians must be seen to be benefiting from the outcome of the governance in this regime. So I'm referring to CNG particularly. Now, if you put all of these elements together, clearly you'll find that the demand side of this market is very robust. Now, NEPL, it's a major player in ensuring that gas is made available, whether through domestic delivery obligation or using other commercial instruments. Can you just discuss with us what are the strategic position? Again, we need to start from strategy. What are the strategic levers and the strategic measures that NEPL are taking to ensure that you stand by your motto as a corporate entity which says energy today, energy tomorrow, because the demands are there. What are you doing to meet those demands?
Hello, okay. Hello, thank you. I think, let me take a step back because it's good to paint the picture of history before we look forward. If we think about gas demand, gas supply, maybe 10 years ago, 2015, recently plotted the numbers. We were actually producing and monetizing about 60%, 59% of gas of what was produced is what was monetized. And from an upstream supplier or producers, you can produce gas, but if it's not monetized, then there's no incentive or encouragement for upstream suppliers to actually produce gas. Globally, Russia, Norway, US, even that we follow, production gas and what is monetized is around 80 to 85%. So there's already a global standard, which is, let's say, a point C, an aspiration that Nigeria wants to get to. What are we today? Today, year to date, we produce about 7.5 BCF. We said about 8. What are we monetizing? We monetize about 4.5, 4.6. So that's around about 60%. There's the shortfall. What is our point B? Where do we want to get to? That's a matter of, do we have the market? Because a lot of things, gas is a little bit different to oil production. Oil, everybody wants to produce oil. When the price is at $100 per barrel, production, everybody opens their tap and produce. Gas is actually quite different. Oil you can produce and store, gas you can't. So from a supplier point of view, the end-to-end, the value chain must work. And what do I mean by value chain? You must have your market. You must have the infrastructure pipeline. You must have the regulators regulating the industry. And the price must be right. So a lot of times when we talk about gas production, producers are looking at it from an end-to-end point of view. I like the fact that the decade of gas showed us, a lot of numbers. Demand is increasing. We have some supply sources that are going to be FID'd in the next maybe 24 months, some in the next 12 months. The balance we need to play is how do we ensure that once gas is produced, and we like to use the word cost-reflective tariff, making sure that the upstream supplier themselves are made whole. What is the challenge in the gas sector that we find? NEPL, for example, we supply about maybe 80% to the domestic market, and actually power sector. Is power credible today as we speak? The answer is no. The debt is about almost $1 trillion, $964 billion. That's a lot of money. So we need to get to a place where the commercials, plus the development, plus the market, all speak to each other. And what are we trying to do? Looking at an integrated commercial framework. How do you ensure that everybody that is a player in the value chain can benefit? Because if the upstream can't even develop gas and find that the projects are bankable, then they're not going to do it. If the midstream and the downstream also find a challenge in the cost of tariff, security issues, regulator, again, you're going to find the supply and the demand not speaking to each other. So that's where NEPL is at. What are we trying to do? Develop almost a commercial template that's going to look at the upstream supply. In those days, we used to kind of say, maybe there are fields that you can produce at next to nothing. So almost free gas. But have we exhausted the free gas from a supply point of view today? This is like 2008 when we started the gas master plan, where, 17, 18 years down the line. So if we now need to start to develop fields that are more expensive, then the commercials need to also work together. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ekundayo. So clearly, so we took the regulator first of the upstream sector and then brought in a key player in the supply aspect of that value chain. And we can also then clearly understand that really one of the dominant supplier of gas to the domestic gas market is also looking at all of the elements that are required. So the gas sector, it's really a very, very interesting sector, highly structured. And then a lot of the structures in this segment rallies around the commercial frameworks that then governed a lot of how business is done in this sector. And I'm glad to also say, as a regulator, that some of the points that she raised, the PIA has clearly given us an opportunity to then really upscale how a lot of these commercial elements that are required to provide an environment where gas supply can then be enabled. So the network code, it's being aggressively operationalized. For some of us in the room, you will have gotten the first official release of the applicable tariff on the gas transmission system, which was then released by the regulator effective from 1st of July. tariffing, it's then been adopted into the PIA. The other aspect of the value chain, which will also help to then deepen the offtake of gas, is at the last mile where gas is being used. Licenses were released, issued this year. 10 licenses for gas distribution were issued this year by the regulator. And then everything that the PIA actually prescribed are being implemented to ensure that a viable commercial framework is being provided to sustain and to support the supply of gas. So very interestingly, we have one of the key players in this region. This panel is really balanced, who is then going to be taking us into some areas of strategic focus that the South-South region is actually working on to ensure that all the critical investments that are required, all the critical elements that will then need to be implemented in the South-South to develop a robust market for gas development, that really the states, the key players in the South-South are ready. Honorable Commissioner, sir, now we know that environmental sustainability will require that all of the strategic objectives that the Ministry of Environment, for example, in Akwa Ibom, all the strategic objectives that the Ministry of Environment has, that those strategic objectives must then be tailored in such a way that gas-based projects can be supported. We have heard today that quite a lot of industries are coming to the South-South region, particularly in Akwa Ibom State. What are some of the key statutory requirements that the Ministry of Environment as a subnational entity will then require any new investor that is coming to Akwa Ibom State to take adequate consideration of, so that they will meet the requirements that your state and the region needs to help them to bring the kind of investments that we need?
Thank you very much. Let me first of all thank GSN and NNPCL for bringing this workshop to Akwa Ibom State. And I believe that this will snowball into making us the landlord. You know, we need investors to come into Akwa Ibom and take advantage of our massive gas facilities. The logical point of departure in this case is any investor coming into Akwa Ibom must get necessary approvals from the regulatory agencies. And then when you get to Akwa Ibom, you must do an EIA, must get an environmental impact assessment report. And then in that report, you have the remediation plan. The things, what you will be able to do, how you'll be able to take care of the environment, to put it back the way it was when you started. So this is like a landlord and tenant relationship. So I think I'll go through the requirements.
Okay, Commissioner.
Just a minute, please.
Okay, sir. Please, let's just be patient. So if you can then just highlight just the major requirements. You've already mentioned one. I'm sure every investor that is here will then really appreciate such insight.
Yes, the community development is part of it. Just a minute, please. Okay, like I said, you conduct a thorough environmental impact assessment and then use best available technologies. You know, we expect that the companies that are coming to explore gas in Akwa Ibom State should come with adopt technologies that minimize environmental impacts, such as reducing gas emissions and so on. And then they should develop and implement spill response plans. You know, most times we have a situation where gas leaks are reported or oil spills are reported, and it will take weeks before intervention. And then they should engage social communities. Those things, if they are not done, usually create friction between the investor and communities. Develop community development programs and respect human rights and implement fair labor practices, like observe make sure that the local community is accommodated, like respect the Local Content Acts. So those are the things that I believe that if they do, it will help and make the environment conducive for them.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you. So we're giving just 40 minutes from the insights that have been given by each of the very strategic partners of gas development in the South-South particularly. Now, the interesting thing about all of this insight is that a lot of the insights that have been given here are insights that have been applied in other regions, and those insights are already creating impact. And we're giving only 40 minutes to take this session. So I will then ask just one question for all of us to do 2 minutes. Now, we're in the South-South region. Clearly, because we are all dealing with strategies, I can definitely be assured that all of us have strategic focus on the South-South. What are some of those comparative advantages? I know a lot of them have been mentioned, but I want us to then just re-echo that from the strategic perspective of our various organization. What are some of those comparative advantages that you know that if the South-South region leverages on those comparative advantages, that this amazing dream and these amazing aspirations that we are then discussing today, that they will not then just be aspiration, but they will become realities from now into the next few years. So just 2 minutes. We take that as our closing comments.
Okay. So I think for me, and from the point of view of the Commission, the PIA is a gas-centric legislation. The provisions of the PIA enables gas development and production. And I think the South-South region can leverage on that. But let me expatiate a little bit. The PIA reduces the royalty that is paid on gas. Prior to PIA, for instance, the royalty rate for offshore was 5%, and then for land and onshore was 7%. But the PIA reduced that to a flat fee of 5%.
Okay.
But when you have the utilization of that gas locally, the royalty for that reduces to 2.5%.
Awesome.
So you now think about the recently gazetted fiscal incentive directives of the of the executive order of Mr. President, right? That gives tax credit and allowance, depending on how wet or lean the gas is. These are enablement, which I think South-South can leverage on and monetize the abundant gas resources within this region.
Awesome. So fiscal incentives, South-South region, take note of that. NGIC.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. You see, from gas transporter point of view, we have within us here, we have our metering station very close by. I will start from the one that's close to me, which is Ekotavase. Nearness to the resources will determine the length of pipeline that I will have to transport even to where I'm going to meter. And also, in this Niger Delta, we are close to river body wherein even the gas-based industry like fertilizer, like urea, if you want to partake in export of the resources, can take advantage of the closeness to the water body to do this. And as my EVP has rightly said, within the Niger Delta, already we have level of collaboration with regards to security of assets. So with all this, these are comparative advantage that we have that will make even doing business around Niger Delta to be easy for us in NGIC.
Awesome, thank you. So proximity to the resources, and then clearly the availability of infrastructure that is already bringing gas to this region. So South-South, please, let's take note of that. NEPL, what are comparative advantages that the South-South region can take?
I think for NEPL, it's the huge reserve that the South-South has. Reserve gas is about 20 TCF. So the real issue is how does the South-South tap into that? And what NEPL is trying to do now is to focus on NAG development. Up until now, oil comes out, gas comes out with oil, so AG, and that was what was being produced. But going forward with the push, both from the president, the GCO, and the leadership of NNPC, we are starting to look at dedicated NAG fields. So it's to tap into that opportunity. How do we develop that gas fields? NAG on itself, non-associated gas, that can then be utilized to develop the economy of the South-South.
All right, thank you. So South-South region, the message is very clear. There's abundant availability of resources. The South-South region can actually tap into that. And lastly, in a minute or two, sir, you are from this region and you've heard everything that has been said. Can we just re-echo it? What are some of those strategic comparative advantages that the South-South region has towards gas development?
Thank you very much. In Akwa Ibom State, we have an economic blueprint known as the Arise Agenda, and it patronizes PPPs. So if you work with us in Akwa Ibom, and then government always, compliments, you can be given land in partnership to your investment. And then the government has made provision, has imported CNG buses. So those buses will hit the streets anytime soon. So those are the advantages that I believe if you invest in South-South, in Akwa Ibom in particular, you'll be able to take advantage of.
All right, thank you. So government is enabling gas business in the South-South region. Private-public partnership, it's also a strategic element that Akwa Ibom State is looking at. And generally, every entity that is seated on this panel has clear strategic focus to then ensure that gas-based economic development is effectively supported in the South-South region. All of them have declared that they are ready. So I think the time is now. Let all the gas that is required in the South-South region really begin to be used to develop this very important region of the nation. Thank you for giving us this opportunity, and please enjoy the rest of the session.